This story is probably, how would you say it? It's one of those things that somebody's going to find a huge storage of a bunch of gear one day, and that the owner forgot about. And the reason I'm saying this is I was involved in the Philly International. They had a fire at their studio. Philly International was Gamble and Huff studio. They had their studio at 309 South Broad Street in Philadelphia. And it was a pretty dated studio. I'll see if I can find some pictures. It had shag carpeting on the walls. But I mean, they did a decent amount of work out of there. And it was also the offices for Philly International. So, Gamble and Huff. And it was, their building was across the street from, I forgot. It's this big, live venue now. But I think it was a homeless person walked into their building and just lit up a fire in one of their rooms. And it did all the smoke damage to the studio. And the studio was on the second floor. So, they had an Otari, I think a Concept 1, and they had an MTR 90 in there, but a ton of audio gear, for recording. And then they had a closet full of just a ton of gear that they used. And they had a few other little studios in there. And I got called in because of the smoke damage. They asked me to come in and do an inventory of everything and then work with the insurance company to figure out what everything was worth. Because once things get smoke on it, it doesn't really work the same way, and things can go bad down the line. And usually with insurance companies, what happens is you do the claim, and then they agree to whatever it is, and they cut the check and they give it to the client. And then all the gear, they either take it or they just give it to somebody. And what happened with this situation, because I was interested in taking the gear if they did the claim with the insurance company, and then getting it all cleaned up and see if I could resell it. But in the end, what happened is I worked with the insurance company, went through everything. And I've done this before. I think Jazzy Jeff had a flood in his studio I had to do, but I've done this a bunch of times where I'm called in, do the inventory, go through everything, figure out fair market value, what it was bought for, what it's worth now. And then then kind of go back and forth with the insurance company of what they think that they're going to pay. And I just get a fee for doing my work, and then that's it. But in the end, with Philly International, when everything was said and done, they cut them a check, and then they told them, you can keep everything. So I think one day someone's going to find a whole storage container filled with all this gear from Philly International, because what happened is the building that Philly International was in, actually Gamble and Huff owned. And what they did is they eventually sold the building, and it was demolished, and they put this big new, I think it's office buildings there. So it's all gone now, that whole history of that area. But I'll see if I can find pictures of Philly International, some old pictures, and maybe find some newer ones. But this is kind of the topic of this video is somebody's going to find a whole storage container someplace at some point with a ton of gear in it that everybody forgot all about.